It has been a rough start to the season for the Orioles. And while I try my best to remain optimistic, it's important to point out that this thing might not get turned around here in 2025. And I'm going to give you the three reasons why that could be coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Tuesday, May 6th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we're going to take a look at what has gone wrong for the Orioles in this start to the season and really look at not the past, but more so the future. The three reasons why the Orioles won't be able to turn this 2025 season around. We'll talk about the struggles for the rotation, all the injuries they've sustained, and the weird situations in which this Orioles offense is just not coming up big. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So back on Friday, I did a similar episode to this. If you haven't checked it out, please go ahead and do so wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it may be. You can listen to it there. Also subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps the show. Or you can watch it here on YouTube. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube page. But I try to take the positive on Friday. The Orioles had just won that series against the Yankees to close out a disappointing April, but it was a good finish to the month. They played a lot better baseball in those two wins over New York. And I gave you the three reasons why the Orioles will turn around this 2025 season. And my personal thoughts on the O's haven't really changed a lot between then and seeing the O's drop 2 of 3 to the Royals over the weekend. I mean, it's been 3 more games. Yes, they are 13-20. Not a great spot to be in sitting here on May 6th. But I said during that episode on Friday that I would be doing the flip side of it at some point this week. And here it is. This is more of the pessimistic take. And these points I'm going to bring up are things I am worried about this team too. Now, I'm still going to, as I've mentioned, take the generally optimistic side when I'm hosting this podcast. Like many who have been here for a while know that. But there is the reality that this team is 13-20. And it's going to be tough for this Orioles team to get into the postseason, to turn this thing around. So today, it is the three reasons why the Orioles won't turn this season around. And whether, they get over 500, whatever it may be, basically that this is too deep of a hole that they've dug to get back and get to October for the third straight season. So let's start with the number one reason, the glaring issue, the first thing people are going to think about when they talk about this problem. And that is the Orioles rotation is just not good enough to turn this thing around this season. And it was a worry coming into the year. It was a worry after an offseason of losing Corbin Burns and only bringing in Charlie Morton and Tomoyuki Sugano on one-year deals in the rotation. It became much more of a worry when the Orioles started picking up all those injuries in spring training. But entering play on Monday, the Orioles rotation ERA was 5.69 this season, 28th in Major League Baseball, that ERA. That is not where you want to be. They were 30th for a while, so it's nice to be up at 28th at this point. They have admittedly been pitching a little bit better recently. We saw Dean Kramer throw the 7 scoreless innings in the win on Friday night, but it has not been good. And the biggest issue, I think, is that it doesn't look like with this group that it's going to get better. They have a 5.69 ERA with a 5.55 FIP. FIP is fielding independent pitching. It is an ERA-like stat that is a better job of kind of predicting what a future ERA will be based on things the pitchers can control. Walks, strikeouts, hit by pitches, and home runs, basically taking out all the luck involved when a ball gets put in play. How good is the true talent of a pitching staff? The FIP does a better job of predicting that. And when you have an ERA well over 5, sometimes you expect your FIP to be in the 4s, the 3s, and saying, oh, we're just getting unlucky. When your FIP is also above 5.5, it's not bad luck. It is just terrible pitching and terrible performance that has led to this for the Orioles. And it shows you that at least this current group, this rotation right now that we've seen, is not due to get a whole lot better. I mean, we've talked about it for Dean Kramer. Great start Friday night against the Royals, 7 scoreless innings. And we've talked about how bad he's been in April in his career. Calendar turned to May, and he looked good again. But if you dig into all the stats, like, yeah, it's a 6.42 career ERA in March and April. It's a 3.91 ERA in every other month of his career. There are reasons to be optimistic, but also he's still got a 5.73 ERA with a 5.12 FIP. His true talent is still an ERA over 5. That's not predicted to get better. He has a 92.8 zone contact rate against him. That is the highest of any qualified starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. What that means when he throws pitches in the zone and opponents swing, they're making contact more than against any other pitcher. He's not missing bats in the strike zone. That tells you his stuff is not playing up. And his swing and miss pitch, his splitter, which he added last year and got better and better, opponents are hitting 320, and it has just a 12% swing and miss rate this year. Those are not good for something that's supposed to be your strikeout pitch, especially against opposite-handed hitters in the lefties that Kramer faces. Cade Povich, a 5.16 ERA, a 5.23 FIP this season. Another pitcher where the underlying stats show you it might not get better. And if you look here, if you're watching on the Locked On Orioles YouTube page, this is Cade Povich's Baseball Savant page. That is a lot of blue. That is a concerning Baseball Savant page to look at so far this season. I mean, the only thing that's even close to average is his walk rate, right around league average at 9%. Everything else he's doing under the hood is not just bad, it's been quite terrible. And he's had some good starts, right? He threw those 6 2/3 one-run ball against the Nats. There seems to be some promise in there for Cade Povich, but there's a chance this doesn't get better, at least here in 2025. That would not be good. Tomoyuki Sugano, he's kind of been the savior of this pitching staff. A 3.00 ERA in his first 7 starts in the major leagues. It's been awesome, but it also comes with a 5.10 FIP. I mentioned that zone contact rate, which Kramer is the worst in baseball at. Sugano is the 16th worst. It's not great stuff. Now he's throwing the kitchen sink at you, but he is playing a dangerous game there, especially with low fastball velocity, not dominant stuff. Now he's the kind of pitcher who could defy a high FIP, and because he has good command and mixes pitches and hits the corners, he could always run a much lower ERA than expected. We've seen it so far. It could certainly continue. And I think there's a good chance it will for Sugano in 2025. But this is just to say there is danger here that it could start swinging the other direction. And then Kyle Gibson, the last guy in this rotation right now, he looked much better on Sunday than the debacle that was his first start last Tuesday against the Yankees. I mean, it would be hard not to look better from that start. And he kept the Orioles in the game, 4 innings of 3-run ball, but this is 37-year-old Kyle Gibson. He's got a 56% hard hit rate against him in 2 starts. That is absurd. And the Orioles were able to sign him to a 1-year deal at the end of spring for depth because nobody else wanted to bring him back for his age 37 year, despite the fact that he was at least solid for the Cardinals in 2024. That is a concerning 4 to have in the rotation right now. And Charlie Morton's in your bullpen because he would be your 5th starter, but he's been completely unusable. And I honestly think this week is the week that the Orioles might release Charlie Morton. So he's not maybe even going to be in the picture any longer. Those are the guys you've been sending out there. Now, it is fair to say that that specific 5 has been going out there because the Orioles have just been decimated by injuries as well. And Zack Efflin could be back soon. He is the ace of this staff. We knew that going into this season. He had 3 great starts. He went on the injured list with a lat strain. He made his first rehab start in Aberdeen on Sunday, 4 scoreless innings. He threw 58 pitches. And Efflin did say before the start, he thinks he's only going to need 1 rehab start before he's ready. That was on Sunday. If he feels good, he could be the Orioles starter this Saturday in Anaheim when they need to go back to a 5-man rotation. And Efflin's great. No qualms there. Like, I love Zack Efflin. That was an incredible trade for the Orioles to get him from the Rays at the deadline last year. But 1 starter coming back doesn't fix it all because he doesn't even replace anyone bad right now. It's not like Efflin comes in and, somebody that's been bad gets bumped from the rotation. The rotation's been so bad and so injured that because they have some off days to work with, they're running a 4-man rotation right now. So if Efflin comes back Saturday, he just becomes your 5th guy to give you, at the very least, a full 5-man pitching rotation again. That's how bad it's gotten. And he will make it a lot better. But Zack Efflin can't save this entire thing. Next up behind Efflin is Brandon Young, who can return from AAA as early as Sunday if the Orioles would like. He's made 2 starts, and they've showed some promise, the Orioles' number 2 pitching prospect, but he was kind of a command artist in the minor leagues, and he's walked 8 batters in 8 2/3 innings in his first 2 big league starts. Now, I think some of that is just the nerves and the jitters, and he's going to shake those off at some point, but you need help now, and you're playing with fire if Brandon Young's going to walk 4 batters per start for a little bit longer. That is going to get you in trouble if you're handing him the baseball. Then there's Trevor Rogers, who did make his 3rd rehab start in AAA on Sunday through 61 pitches, coming back from that knee injury he sustained in the offseason. He could be an option fairly soon here for the Orioles, but he was terrible in his 4 starts with the O's last year after the deadline deal, and the Orioles sent him down to AAA for the remainder of the season because they couldn't use him. Now, he was okay in Miami last year before the trade. He had a 4.53 ERA. I mean, the Orioles would take a starter with a 4.53 ERA in their rotation right now, but everything under the hood did not look very good. The Orioles were betting on Rodgers getting back to his former, almost rookie of the year form from a couple of years ago with Miami. Now, his velocity in his rehab start on Sunday, back to what we saw last year when he was healthy, but not back to the 94 to 96 we saw him throw when he was so good with the Marlins in 2021. Yeah, he's going to make some starts this year, but we haven't seen anything from him in an Oriole uniform that makes you think it's going to make this rotation better when he joins it. Then there's Chase McDermott, who made his first AAA start on Saturday, his second kind of rehab start coming back from the lat injury he suffered in spring training. And the stuff looked good on Saturday. That was nice to see, but this is a guy with only 1 big league start to his name. That came in August of last year. This is a guy with a lot of injury history, with some definite reliever risk, despite being the number 1 pitching prospect in the Orioles system right now. And as long as he's healthy, being major league ready, he's going to get some chances to start as well. But there's some risk with McDermott, and there is a path where he is just the right-handed DL Hall. And that means there's a lot of promise in that arm, but he's probably better as a reliever, and there's going to be injury issues throughout his career. That's a possibility for McDermott. I'm a big Chase McDermott believer. He's going to start some games for the O's this year, but we haven't seen anything that you can trust him at the big league level, and that is the depth right now. Even with it coming back, it's still not feeling great. And then you could say, oh, Connor, Grayson Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish, and Tyler Wells could all be back in this rotation in the second half. Absolutely, they could. That would be a gigantic boost for this rotation to get all 3 of those back. But there is no guarantee that any of those 3 pitch for the Orioles in 2025. Wells and Bradish coming off significant elbow surgery last June. I mean, best case scenario is maybe like August 1st-ish for those guys to come back. We see any kind of setbacks, they start getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and all of a sudden, blink of an eye, it's the end of the season. The Orioles don't want to push him. They target 2026. And for Grayson Rodriguez, he's had like 3 injuries already this year and still has not thrown a pitch since last July. It's not what you want to see. He had the elbow and the tricep issues in spring training that shut him down. He started to come back throwing. Then he felt another lat issue. That's the 3rd one in the last 4 years for Grayson Rodriguez. So that shut him down again. I mean, hopefully we'll see him in like July, but who knows at this point? Like, I'm not counting on much from Grayson Rodriguez. So you put that all together, and at best, for the rest of the first half, you're looking at Zack Efflin, number 1, and he's a great pitcher. Sugano, number 2, you're hoping he holds on to this magic he's had so far. Dean Kramer's your number 3, and you're hoping that the start he showed Friday night against Kansas City is a sign of things to come with April behind him. And then 4 and 5 is just the best 2 at any given time out of Kyle Gibson, Cade Povich, Trevor Rogers, and Chase McDermott. That is what you're looking at right now. That rotation needs a lot of help from the offense and the bullpen to turn this season around and not just stay competitive, but go on some winning streaks, win 5 out of 7, win 8 out of 10 to get themselves back to 500 just to reset this season, hopefully at some point in May. That's not a rotation that I think can pitch the Orioles to that. It's a rotation that can maybe keep them in games and allow the offense and the bullpen to get them there. But it's just fine at best. And at worst, it still has a lot of issues. This team started the season as the 23rd best rotation in baseball projected by Fangraphs. Their projection for the rest of the season is now down to 27th. Their ERA right now is 28th. So they're projected to be 1 spot better for the rest of the season. That's not going to get them to turn things around and get them into the postseason. And I realize a lot of what I just talked about was also injury related. Unfortunately, the injuries have not been kept just to the pitching. It's also now the position players. So we'll talk about all that injury fallout and how it's hurting the Orioles, literally and figuratively, coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I think the best thing about Monarch Money is the all-in-one convenience. Everything you need is right there. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off that first year. So we move on to reason number 2, why the Orioles will not be able to turn this 2025 season around. And that is that the injuries just keep mounting. The injuries were a huge part of the Orioles just playing basically 500 baseball down the stretch and limping into the postseason and limping out of the postseason, being swept by the Royals in the wild card round. And those injuries have continued into this year. Obviously, the Orioles knew they were starting the season without Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells, who underwent elbow surgery, and they weren't going to have them at least for the first half of the year. Then they brought in guys who they thought would be good depth to replace them for a while in their rotation. But then you had to deal with Grayson Rodriguez, Trevor Rogers, and Chase McDermott on the IL that just killed that depth immediately. And now you've got the extra issues with Grayson. I mean, the Orioles are saying they're expecting Grayson Rodriguez to come back this year, but who knows at this point? With all of these injuries, he could change a lot with this rotation. If Grayson came back healthy, I'm looking at this rotation in a completely different way because he's got ace potential. And when he's been on the field, he's shown to be one of the better starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. But he just hasn't been on the field enough, and he hasn't been on the field at all this year. And now he's getting more and more setbacks and different injuries, and the lat has popped up again. You're setting yourself up for failure if you are expecting to get a good Grayson Rodriguez at some point this year. If they do, that would be great. But it doesn't feel good right now. And you've also been without Albert Suarez. I had my qualms in spring training about if Albert Suarez could repeat this year what he did last year. But Suarez kind of saved this Orioles pitching staff in 2024. And at the very least, if you had him healthy right now, you'd at least have 5 starters. He'd be somewhat trying to keep you in games on the mound. And he'd be better than some of the other guys the Orioles are throwing out there. And Suarez, after his first outing of the year in Toronto, gets a shoulder injury. He's on the 60-day IL. The prognosis doesn't sound great. They could be without Suarez for the entirety of the 2025 season. So that's another piece of good depth that you now don't have. And although the bullpen has been good for most of the year, it's missing Andrew Kittredge. He was the guy you brought in, the veteran, been a great reliever on a 1-year deal this offseason. He gets the knee surgery in spring training. Now, what's nice is Kittredge did throw his first rehab outing in Aberdeen on Sunday. It's going to be a few weeks before he's ready, but by the end of May, if all goes well, Kittredge should be able to rejoin this bullpen. But that's still 2 months without the guy that you brought in as kind of the veteran to this pen, and that's hurt them as well. The issue is they're having all these issues, injury and performance on the starting pitching side. But it's like, at least this offense should be able to hold it together. They've got a lot of talent. Well, now the injuries are hitting the offense too. It already happened early in the year. The Colton Cowser breaking his thumb, sliding into first. He'll be out until early June. They obviously miss his bat, but they also miss his glove big time. I mean, the Orioles are playing way more Heston Kjerstad in the outfield than they've wanted to, and honestly, way more Ryan O'Hearn. And heading into play Monday, they were 26th in the league in team outs above average, -8 OAA on the season so far. They are straight up a bad defense this year. Now you got Jordan Westburg on the injury list with a hamstring issue. He had already been banged up all year. He'd already been struggling. He had an 87 WRC plus in 98 plate appearances. Now he is eligible to return off the IL on Friday when the Orioles go to Anaheim, but is that rest all he needed? Like, how effective will he be? It was tough to watch Jordan Westburg. He was in an 0 for 30 stretch at one point earlier this year. Ramon Urias was kind of saving the O's, just as he did last year. Then he goes down with a hamstring injury. He had a 120 WRC plus before the injury. We don't really have a timetable on him right now, but the O's are going to miss him big time because he had been stepping in clutch. Tyler O'Neill, when you sign a guy like Tyler O'Neill, who's been on the IL 14 times in his career, you know you're going to deal with injuries. And he was pretty healthy for the first month of the year, and then the neck issues pop up. And O'Neill would have been eligible to actually come off the IL on Sunday, but he did not. The Orioles lost to the Royals without him. So we'll see if he gets activated at any point this week on the road trip, because his 10-day IL stint is up, but clearly the neck is still bothering him. You got Gary Sanchez, who you brought in to be your veteran backup catcher, and he hasn't done literally anything offensively, but it's at least a veteran bat on your team. Now he's got this wrist issue, and he's on the injured list, and that could take a little bit of time. And Maverick Handley, who I love him, but much better suited to be a depth catcher in AAA, is now your backup and got his first major league start on Sunday. Even Cody Poteet, a depth starter who the Orioles got from the Cubs early this season, stashed him in AAA, said, hey, if we need him, we'll use him. Well, they needed him for one appearance a couple weeks ago. He throws, he sustains a shoulder injury. He's been on the 15-day injured list since then. It's like, who else can possibly go down? That's not to mention that Gunnar Henderson, your best player, MVP candidate, started the year on the injured list. He finally started to get it going last week. He had a good series against the Royals over the weekend, but you were missing him for a while, and then you were kind of missing his production because he didn't really get a full spring training. So the first couple weeks he was quote-unquote healthy, he was still kind of ramping up, and you could tell in the batter's box. It's just been so many injuries. And you can argue, as I did last week, that, hey, they're getting healthier, right? I mentioned Rogers and McDermott and Kittredge, throwing on rehab, Efflin coming back. It should be pretty soon for O'Neill and Westberg and Cowser by June 1st, and that should get you more and more depth on this team. But you're digging such a big hole. You're already 13-20. Even a healthy team is going to have a tough time digging out of that. And like another pitching injury, they're right back to where they were, even with getting Zack Efflin back. And it's now Kobe Mayo's job at third base for the time being, at least until Westberg or Arias or both come back. And that's a big chance for Mayo to get kind of his third stint in the major leagues and show what he can do again. But he hasn't shown it yet, and it's his real big chance now. But last year he had a chance like this too, when he was overtaken by Emmanuel Rivera, a waiver claim, because Mayo wasn't producing and Rivera was. And again, this is all already in April. Now, you can say it's a long season. The Orioles have plenty of time to turn it around. Absolutely true. They got 5 months to do that. But it's also a long season, and it scares you. Okay, if there were this many injuries in March and April, what do the next 5 months have in store? Could there be any more? That's what concerns me about this. You look at the bullpen, for example. The stats are inflated because they had position players give up 9 runs in one game at some point. They've got Charlie Morton pitching out of the bullpen. Like, the legitimate members of the bullpen have been very good this year. They've been shaky at times recently, but in general, I think they've been very, very good. I don't think anyone can argue this statement. Of the 4 parts of the team, starting rotation, lineup, defense, bullpen, the bullpen has been the best out of the 4 so far this year for the Orioles. They have truly won them some games themselves this season. But you talk about all these injuries and you worry about injuries to the bullpen. Like, besides Kittredge, the bullpen has been pretty healthy this year, but you worry about overworking them. Now, luckily, it hasn't happened too much so far. Their bullpen has only had to cover 124 innings, which is actually only the 18th most in baseball. So even though the rotation has been getting just absolutely battered around at times and is 27th in innings, the Orioles bullpen hasn't been completely overworked this year, but that's going to come. If the starting pitching continues to struggle, your bullpen's going to get gassed, get overworked, performance is going to go down, and you're going to sustain some injuries in that bullpen, and all of a sudden they're starting downhill as well. It's almost like a what else can go wrong scenario for the Orioles. And that's all of that. We really haven't talked about the actual offensive performance. And while I still believe in this lineup, there are some concerning trends happening. And we'll talk about that to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, well, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Game Time gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. And Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On. And as another Orioles homestand comes up next week, I can count on them to help me grab tickets that meet my needs. I think the best part about Game Time is that I can be so spontaneous to get to the ballpark. I've done this multiple times over the past few years where I'm around the park, I'm in the area, I just go on the Game Time app, it's 30 minutes before first pitch, and I buy tickets for an unbeatable price, and then I just walk into the ballpark. You can show the ticket on the Game Time app, they scan it, and you walk into Camden Yards. Can't get better than that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB. That is LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So the third and final reason, at least that we'll talk about today, that I think the Orioles will not be able to turn this thing around, at least taking the devil's advocate side of this, is that they have just been really bad on offense in some very specific ways so far this season. Now, in general, this offense has not been horrible, but they also have not been good. They have certainly overperformed in every scenario so far this year. I mean, they've basically been a league average offense. They got a 98 WRC plus that ranks 15th in baseball. They're smack dab in the middle in terms of overall production. They are lower in runs. They're 23rd in runs scored, which is really kind of the name of the game at this point. They are, about middle of the pack in slugging percentage. They are 15th. They are 26th in batting average. That's been a bit of a concern this year. They are 27th in on-base percentage. That has been concerning. They're not walking a ton. They're striking out a little bit too much. It's been across the board just disappointing offensive season. It's something that can get better. They're still producing overall. They're still hitting the ball out of the ballpark a good amount. They're ninth in home runs. That's able to save them at times. But it's been two specific ways they've been bad. Number one is against left-handed pitching. And you'd rather be bad against lefties than righties because you see a lot more right-handed starters than you see lefties. So you're able to be a good team while being bad against lefties. But they've been really, really bad against lefties. A 179 average, a 240 slugging percentage, and a 50 WRC plus as a team against left-handed pitching this year all rank dead last in Major League Baseball entering play on Monday. And the bad part is that's something the Orioles addressed in the offseason. Now, the O's were fifth best in baseball against lefties last year. They did struggle when they suffered the injuries against left-handers down the stretch, but the Orioles' offseason plan with hitters was to get even better against lefties. And they already had some guys getting healthy and coming back who really mashed lefties. Jordan Westburg, 116 career WRC plus coming in against lefties, 77 this year. Adley Rutschman, always better from the right side against lefties, 135 WRC plus coming in. He's got a 40 WRC plus this year. Ryan Mountcastle, we know he hits lefties well, 112 in his career WRC plus, down to 30 this year. Ramon Laureano was brought in to hit lefties, a 123 career WRC plus. He was great at it last year for the Atlanta Braves. 26 WRC plus this year. Gunnar Henderson turned into an MVP candidate last year because he learned how to hit lefties with a 138 WRC plus. He's got a 14 WRC plus this year. Tyler O'Neill, a career lefty masher, a 152 WRC plus in his career against lefties, and only Aaron Judge in 2024 hit better against left-handed pitchers in the major leagues. That seemed to be a slam dunk to get lefties. O'Neill is 2 for 21 with 2 singles and 11 strikeouts against left-handed pitching this year. What is going on? Gary Sanchez has hit lefties well in his career. 0 for 16 this year. Even Dylan Carlson, who's up with the team right now, always been good against lefties, a 122 WRC plus. He is 0 for 6 against left-handed pitching this season. What's going on? Now, you could say it's due to turnaround. That's certainly an argument you can make after those stats. Like, hey, Connor, these guys have been so good in their career. There's a small sample size of just over a month, like 5 weeks of the season. They're going to figure it out. Totally possible, and I do believe that for a good chunk of these Orioles hitters. But it's still concerning that across the team, it's absurd how bad they've been. Is it too late to fully turn it around? I mean, your best performer against lefties has been Cedric Mullins, basically, at a 185. He had a 43 WRC plus against lefties last year. What that tells me is, yes, Cedric's been awesome, but he could be due to at least still be good overall, but cool off against lefties at some point. Then where are you if you don't even have Mullins and you're already the worst offense in baseball against left-handed pitching? That's a concern. However, the good part is, as I mentioned, you see way more righties than you see lefties. So in general, if you can mash righties, which the O's have at least done a better job of this year, right? They've been good. They, against righties, are the fourth best offense in baseball and a 122 WRC plus. So that's why I'm not super worried about the offense, because you see double, triple the amount of righties than you see lefties, and they're really good against right-handers. That's great. But spots that come up every single game are chances with runners in scoring position. And these were things the Orioles struggled in late last year when they kind of, started playing some bad baseball down the stretch. And it's continued to a different level this year. The Orioles just kind of cooled off to like a little below league average team with runners in scoring position last year. This year, they've been a nightmare. 192 average, 271 on base with runners in scoring position, both dead last in baseball entering play on Monday. Striking out 24.4% of the time in those spots, third highest in the big leagues. And it's not that much higher than their season strikeout rate of 23.7%. And they were tops in the league in this stuff in 2023 and hitting with runners in scoring position. But it's not really a sticky stat year to year. Over time, your runners in scoring position stats should not be exactly equal, but should be right around your just regular hitting stats overall, because while the situation is different, the approach should be the same. And that's how it is for a lot of teams over long stretches of time. But for the Orioles, for the last 6-8 months, that has just not been the case. Like, they have a 44% hard hit rate usually. That's good. They have about a 40% hard hit rate with runners in scoring position. That's still about league average. But your best players aren't producing. Gunner's 2 for 15, Adley's 3 for 21 in those situations this year. Those are the guys you want up with guys ready to come home, and they're not delivering. And you do expect them to turn it around because they are good hitters. But once again, like, is the damage done? Is it too late to turn this around? And I'm optimistic. They've been good against righties. It should all even out. This is a super, I can't say the same about the rotation, but this is a super talented lineup that I have full confidence in will turn it around to be able to keep the Orioles somewhat in the mix this year. But we are on May 6th, and it's been awful against lefties and with runners in scoring position. Even if they turn around some, you've built yourself this deficit of a 13-20 record. It's hard to pull out of that. Yeah, the Astros did it last year, and the Mets did it a couple of years ago. The Nationals did it to go and win the World Series in 2019. It's been done before. The Orioles have the talent, I think, to possibly be one of those teams to do it. But with all this stuff I just laid out, it might be too late at 13-20. I hope it's not. I remain the optimist. I still think they can do this. But man, oh man, there are some issues here, and we're really going to find out these next 2 weeks, right? It starts tonight against the Twins. They go Twins, Angels, Twins, Nats. If they're going to go on a winning streak, if they're going to win 8 out of 10, if they're going to get themselves back to 500, get back in the mix, now is the time to get away from this stuff that's been ailing them all year and turn it back around. And that begins tonight in Minnesota, a 7:40 p.m. Eastern time start. Cade Povich goes to the Hill against his former organization. The 15-20 Minnesota Twins will send the righty Pablo Lopez out there with a 2.25 ERA and 5 starts. He's been really good this year. I wish he were an Oriole. He is not. The O's will try and hit him and get back on track tonight. And then I will be back tomorrow recapping everything you need to know from Orioles Twins Game 1 and all the other O's updates you need. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.